Hello and welcome back to our video series, ADRA in Action. Today we are going to talk about the conscientious efforts that ADRA Canada is making to be good stewards of creation in all of the work that we do. Climate change becomes increasingly evident as each year goes by. Because of our work in emergency response, ADRA is acutely aware of the annual increase in catastrophic events related to climate change. Climate activism may not be the first thing that people think of when it comes to ADRA's development and emergency response work. But being in tune with the changing environments across our planet is a vital part of ADRA's mission. The climate affects agriculture and thus overlaps majorly with our concerns for global hunger. Changing and intensifying weather patterns also often lead to natural disasters that leave people homeless, displaced, wounded, and traumatized. During the past couple of days, I've been traveling through the Turkana County region of Kenya, where I've been visiting people who are significantly impacted by the changing climate. As I sit here in this rural adobe home in Kenya, it has occurred to me that those that live so connected to the earth are at such a major challenge to be able to deal with the changing climate. As they've gone through now 5 consecutive years of drought, I've heard stories of people sharing with me how years ago when they were younger, these challenges didn't exist. How their goats would produce enough milk for them that they could then use it to make cheese and oil and different products that they could use to consume. But now, because of the changing climate, because of this prolonged drought that they've seen, much of their livestock have died. Those that haven't died have been taken by bandits. And so now they no longer have access to these foods and resources. Most people that I've met are surviving off of one type of fruit only. They eat the same food each day, and many days they're not even able to access food at all because of the reduced amount of food that is available in the area and the dangers that come with being able to go out and harvest those foods. One of the key elements of ADRA's climate-related work is to integrate nature-based solutions in our development projects. As Seventh-day Adventists, we believe that a key lesson we can take from the creation story in Genesis is that humanity was always meant to work alongside nature, in harmony with the world God made. Rather than trying to fight against, overcome, or control the natural world, a truly Christian approach to a changing climate is to learn to understand and work with nature. In other words, you won't necessarily find ADRA conducting dedicated climate change projects. Rather, we build climate consciousness and sensitivity to the natural world into all of our programs. Our goal is to implement our work in the areas of hunger, poverty, and disaster relief in ways that also reduce the existing harmful effects of climate change and build greater harmony between people and nature. For example, ADRA's Embrace project contributed something unique in the Philippines. A local primary school established a vegetable garden on their campus. The garden served multiple functions. It was large enough to produce enough food to provide meals for the entire student body, while also functioning as a learning lab where children could learn practical life skills and apply scientific knowledge. But even more remarkably, the gardens reintroduced knowledge of indigenous vegetables and plants that had formerly been abandoned for processed, pre-packaged food items. While I visited there a couple years ago, I was able to share in one of these meals of food grown from the garden at the school. Working in the garden reacquainted Filipino students and their parents with the indigenous produce of their homeland and taught them how to grow and care for local plants. In this instance, cultural relevance and the conservation of nature overlap beautifully. This is an example of how caring for nature and preserving nature are also acts of justice. Mozambique, a coastal nation that has been subject to multiple typhoons in 2019, is very vulnerable to rising sea levels and increasingly intense storms. In order to alleviate some of the potential damage caused by floodwaters, we opted to plant numerous mangrove trees. A dense network of trees creates a natural barrier that can help to break up and slow down otherwise overwhelming amounts of water. Still, our work in Mozambique is ongoing, and we want to not only respond to the damage from the previous cyclone seasons, but also to help people be ready for when the next disaster hits, helping people be prepared for the future. Of course, these examples from the Philippines and Mozambique are not really instances of climate change prevention, as they are adaptations to changes that have already happened. However, helping local communities to adapt to these changes can contribute to halting the loss of biodiversity, reducing the harm that people experience from the natural world, and cutting off reliance on hyper-processed foods ultimately contributes to people living lifestyles that are more in tune with nature and congruent with efforts to reduce pollution. All of our projects contain components that sensitize our participants on good stewardship. Our training instructs and promotes practices such as waste management, organic gardening, natural pesticides, the planting of trees, agroforestry, crop rotation, land management to avoid overgrazing, and methods of desert reclamation. Meanwhile, back at home, our ADRA Canada office is constantly reevaluating ways to keep our own operations as green as possible. Paying careful mind to avoid unnecessary travel or wasteful uses of electricity are just some of the ways that we do our part to make sure we are working against the forces of climate change. As we hear the dire predictions of science, we are compelled to do our part, as individuals and as an agency, to help reduce the effects of climate change, and then do what we can to help people living through droughts, wildfires, flooding, typhoons, and hurricanes to survive and adapt. Thank you for watching our program today. Please join us next time as we continue our series, ADRA in Action. I look forward to having you join me again soon.